was in a car accident.
You were saying that the mayor is running late, and I'm like, and then you walked behind him, I was like, actually?
He's good? Is John coming?
No, John won't be here. He was at a funeral. Family.
All right. And then who else?
So we're just waiting. Yeah, Eric had the flu. Wayne wasn't feeling the greatest either, he said, so, but he'll be here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who's our alternate?
Ben Holt, he was in a car accident, so he's,
Got a little bit of everything tonight.
yeah, I know, yeah. So,
Did I put Holly Patzer on as an alternate?
no, not that.
Or did I put her somewhere else?
So we got maybe somewhere else because we've got Ben as our alternate.
Does everybody know that? We're waiting for one more?
Not yet, no.
No?
No.
You want me to tell them?
Sure.
I'll stand up for this.
All right.
We're just waiting for one more person to show up, so we have a quorum. We had a case of the flu, a car accident,
Funeral.
a funeral. So every commissioner, we have a few conflicts. So as soon as the next person gets here, we'll start the meeting. So sorry for the delay. I think I wolfed down my ramen. heard something. Hey!
There he is. Hey.
I apologize.
Hey, Wayne.
Hey, Wayne.
Kathleen? Yes.
All right. Okay, it's on.
Yeah.
All right, good evening, everyone. We're going to call the Plan Commission to order.
Did you meet Robert?
We'll start with roll call. You want to take roll call or just
Sorry, Mayor.
attendance?
Sure. We'll do attendance. Mayor Devine?
Here.
Amanda Nowak?
Here.
Wayne Clark?
Yes.
David Roshka?
Here.
Kathleen Degenhardt?
Here. All right, we have a quorum. We will move to item C, which will be the approval of the minutes from the December meeting.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Were there any adjustments or changes to the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The minutes are approved. Now we will move on to Part D, item number 2. Aspen Dental, Katie?
So this item is for a site landscape and architectural plan for Aspen Dental. This would be a portion of the site that's currently the Office Max site. This is zone C4, so the medical clinic use is permitted there. What's being proposed is a approximately 3,500 square foot building. They'd like to start construction in the spring and finish by August of 2020. So Aspen Dental will just be performing general dentistry procedures. They will be open Monday through Friday with approximately 7 to 8 employees and about 25 patients per day. Starting with their architectural plans, just to go over some of the building materials. The building is primarily made up of ephes, brick veneer, some stone veneer along the bottom, metal coping along the top, with metal panel awnings and insulated aluminum windows. Some recommendations that staff have about the plans are to remove ephes, which is a standard recommendation from this body for new construction plans. We would also like to receive some samples of the windows to get a better idea of what that's actually going to look like, especially given these renderings, the blue and the white contrasting just in the pattern. We want to explore that a little further, hopefully reduce the spandrel windows. And because this building is positioned in a site where it will be visible on all 4 sides, we do want to see some window element added to the rear of the building. We're also recommending that the roof unit be screened, and in order to comply with our sign code, that one of the or at least the intent of our sign code, that one of the wall signs be removed from this set of plans. Moving on to the site and landscape plans. So the picture, this is what has been submitted by the applicant, and there are some constraints to how this site can be designed. They have a lease with Blaze Pizza, which is located right here, to provide 40 parking stalls within this general area of the lot. Office Max has an existing pylon sign, which they also have an agreement to maintain as long as Office Max is operating. And Office Max does have large deliveries that come in that require, certain turn radius abilities, kind of at this drive. So these are all some limitations that they're working within to get this site situated. One thing to note, they did include some landscape improvements over on this corner for this proposal. So staff does have concerns with this existing site plan. This really is kind of an outdated development model, having a building in the middle of a parking lot, a duck in a pond, as I like to call it. And the intent of our design guidelines is really to have buildings especially when they are new construction, be built more at a pedestrian scale, to be up against the street front, to be situated at the front of the lot. And so, the applicant has stated that, because of the constraints that we discussed before, it makes it really challenging, potentially impossible on this site. But staff would like to see some version of that plan to work through that and go through that to make sure that it really cannot happen, is not feasible, before moving forward. And when we think about the long-term vision of the city and of the corridor, we really need to be focusing on creating better sites, one by one, and slowly transitioning to a more pedestrian and safer area. And so once you put a building up, it's going to be there for a long time, and so we just really want to make sure that we get it right. So, this is not an actual design. This is just something I photoshopped in about 10 minutes. So moving, just kind of the general concept of moving the building up towards the street front. We recognize that the pylon sign being there prevents this building from being right at the corner, which would obviously be ideal. But we'd like to, if the corner is an option, try and work out some sort of frontage arrangement. Just providing, so Stanton Optical is a great example of a building being built at the corner, and really making this space feel much more pedestrian oriented. And I think even some of our older buildings have these types of qualities, where there's, some seating in the front here at Oscar's, and so the applicant has agreed to continue working with us to try and show us a concept like that. Again, from their perspective, it doesn't seem like a feasible option, but we do want to continue that discussion and explore it to the furthest extent possible. So in addition to having that plan, some other recommendations that we have regarding site landscaping are to include a bike rack on the site, to provide a phase 2, as we're calling it, for lack of a better term, showing improvements for the entire site. When we do a site landscape review, we do it for the entire parcel, not just for the portion that's being redeveloped. And so while we recognize that the dental property is the current priority, we want to see at a minimum, some of these areas be transformed into landscaping where possible. Additionally, just showing where pedestrian connections are or are intended to be, so that it's safe for users who are going potentially from one structure to another. And also, they are intending to record a CSM, which would divide the parcel, somewhere along this line, I believe. And we just want a written agreement from them that they recognize that the occupancy for the business user will not be approved until that CSM has been recorded. So this is just a summary of all of the recommendations that we just discussed, as well as the other typical recommendations that come along with it, the estimated cost of landscaping and the bond for that, any stormwater management issues that need to be addressed, and later signage. There are representatives here if you have questions, or I'm happy to take questions as well.
Thanks, Katie. Any questions, Wayne?
Mr. Mayor, a couple of questions. Who owns Blaze Pizza? Blaze Pizza? Do they own it?
Boulder Venture, yeah, Robert.
So we're the landlord for the property. We redeveloped the old F&F tire store for Blaze Pizza, and we lease it to Blaze Pizza.
And just to follow along, do you also control the office, Max?
We do. We control the
So you
office.
have the entire triangle?
We do.
The shortest?
Right. We bought it in 2017.
All right, thank you. Wouldn't it be appropriate for us to table this pending this recommendation, bottom of page 2. A complete staff recommendation will be provided once requested site, landscape, and architectural plans have been submitted. In other words, once you folks and the applicant have worked through your issues, then bring it back to us. Wouldn't that be the thing to do?
Sure.
It's an option.
It is an option. We know that, they're on a tight timeline, so we were trying to make it possible to work out between us, and, I think the way that the recommendation is written is that, if we cannot come to an agreement, then we would come back before this body, but that's, if you're comfortable with that, we definitely want to work towards getting the best plan possible approved.
Based
But
on
if you're,
your work currently with the applicant, do you feel that you can achieve what you're trying to do? Is it doable?
So I think that there is an opportunity to make it work. The message has been that they believe that the site constraints will make it really difficult to have a site plan that has the building relocated.
I wanted to ask a question. Can you go back to the aerial? Right there. When I first, you have a pointer? Because I'm afraid to touch the screen. When I first heard about this, I was envisioning it was going to be over in this area. And I was wondering if that's a possibility, or if that's, it's obviously a triangular, bit of a challenging parcel, but
Yeah.
that was what I first envisioned when I heard the introduction of the plan.
Yeah, so Office Max really sees the parking field in front of the store as their main parking field.
Okay.
And it actually took, it was a 6-month negotiation to get them to agree to release the outlot on the side of the building.
Okay.
As shown here. As I mentioned, we bought this site in 2017, and the intention all along has been to continue to develop outlots around there. And I think we might be lucky getting an outlot, a small outlot, up in the northeast corner.
Okay.
Maybe in future years if we identify a user.
Okay.
But nothing as large as what we're proposing for Aspen Dental. And just to touch on some things that Katie was referencing, one of our challenges here, we have many challenges here, but the site is constrained by the fact that Office Max has a lease in place and they control it for 10 more years. And so anything we do there, we can't unlock any value without their approval. And some of their conditions were maintaining their pylon sign, which we know that the city wants that to go away, and we've agreed that once their tenancy is done, that will go away. But they also need to maintain the semi-access for the deliveries.
Okay.
We've got the parking constraint that was put in place by by Blaze Pizza, and I know that's sort of an off-site issue, but I think you'd all agree that that Blaze Pizza was a nice improvement to that old vacant F&F tire. And that's sort of what we're trying to do with this whole site, is sort of, as we work our way around, take a long-term approach and continue to improve this site piece by piece as we go around. And I don't know if Office Max will stay in tenancy for the entire 10 years, or if their business model may change before that, but we really have to plan for the next 10 years. We're also trying to avoid any one-way parking aisles, because we don't want to have people back out. We're trying to maintain circulation. Aspen Dental has a lot of senior citizens that come to the location, and so we think the parking circulation should be as friendly as possible. We're also trying not to change the entrance at Highway 100, because we don't want to have to go through a DOT approval, which could slow down the process. So I know this is long-winded, but there are a lot of site constraints that are placed upon this site, and we've been working with this model since fall, presenting draft plans for staff's review, and we will continue to work with them after this evening to respond to Katie's and staff's recommendations. But because of the timing of the Aspen lease, we really need this to keep moving forward so that we can meet their August delivery deadline. And I'll take any other questions you have.
Anyone else have questions? Sounded like you were gearing towards a motion, Wayne. I don't know if it was a formal motion or.
If it was, I would retract it. I think that Katie's response, that working with the applicant, if they can't come to an agreement, they'll come back here. And otherwise, on that basis, I would move approval.
In Katie, we trust. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay. Is-
Could we maybe just,
Yep,
we brought some representatives that might want to respond to some of the other concerns that were brought up.
sure,
Because I think we can maybe satisfy some of those this evening.
absolutely.
Dean from Excel Engineering wanted to talk about some of the building components.
Well, I'll start with some of the low-hanging fruit. I think one of the questions is providing, what is the glass going to be? It is just clear glass. The blue on the renderings was just to reflect, the sky. And the I'll say the white shade for the spandrel was more than anything else just to identify the spandrel. There really isn't going to be a whole lot of difference, from the spandrel to the clear glass, on a normal day. As far as the EFS, the design we have presented here is a prototypical design that Aspen has spent 10 years developing. We represent Aspen Dental throughout the country. Excel does about 150 locations per year. We have hundreds of these locations all over the country. And they've intentionally, used the EFS because it is a practical material up high. It allows us to get some great detail into the facade. It also, allows long-term longevity to the material as long as it's up high enough. As far as and then the other thing I'd like to just touch on a little bit is this, reducing the spandrel. And I agree, we would like to reduce the spandrel as much as possible. But one of the things that with this prototype look, we do have a lot of glazing on the exterior, which I think is value to this building. But the interior circulations that we have inside the building, along with, there's a lot of cabinetry that goes into this location, and we also have toilet rooms that are on the exterior, which create need for the spandrel. So I guess those are kind of the reasons that take any questions you'd have on that.
Sure, and yeah, I think we just want to see some samples of what those are going to look like. And and then I did pull some examples of other Aspen dentals that don't use EFS, at least not as the primary component. Like as you can see behind the whole area behind where the signage is, for example, on both of these buildings is not EFS. And it is just at this point, it's become pretty standard for Plan Commission to not approve new structures to have EFS on them.
Can I, just so that I understand, so then in the entire municipality, you don't allow EFS on anything? Is that, I'm just trying to understand where what part of the EFS that you don't, I guess, what part of the material is, where do you have your objection to that? So I can address that.
The primary objection to using EFS, especially as a primary building material, is that it doesn't hold up particularly well over time. And so within, the matter of several years, it becomes looking discolored and worn and damaged more easily than other types of materials. And there are comparable, cost-effective options available that we've not had any issue getting onto other buildings.
So it's longevity is the issue that you're?
It's longevity, it's aesthetics, it's quality of materials.
Okay.
Alternate options.
as far as longevity, we have buildings in Manitowoc, in, I could provide photographs that, you know, are I'll say from they're 8, 9 years old with the EFS that look brand new. I guess I take objection to the fact that, you know, if EFS done right, it can last as long. I mean, and stucco has been around, you know, if you look in Europe, that's been around for many, many years, for, you know, hundreds of years, centuries.
These are things we shall work on.
We can discuss,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
Was there anybody else that wanted to respond to any questions or?
I think we're okay.
You're good? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So we do have a motion and a second in front of us. If there's no other discussion, then I'm going to ask for a vote. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. We'll move on to item 3, Polly's Pub and Eatery.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I'll just, yeah, wait for Steve. Paul Budiak and his wife Christina here, representing their business and property located at 80th and 81st and Greenfield Avenue. And this was before the Plan Commission back in June of 2018. At the time, Paulie's was proposing an addition on the back side of the building. Just for reference, this is 81st Street here and Greenfield Avenue in the north. That addition was approved as part of Plan Commission use approval and site landscaping and architectural review. The addition was later determined not to be feasible, cost effective. Plan Commission, though, as part of their approval, wanted some additional consistency between the back side of the building, the new addition, and the remainder of the existing building. And so here's what the building looked like in 2018 when the Plan Commission made its approval of the addition. This is a rough sketch here in PowerPoint of where that addition would have been placed. It was intended to be an addition for a kitchen expansion, bathrooms, an interior staircase up to the second floor. Some of the plans that were approved basically had some new windows on the front of the building in the bar area, kept the existing stucco on the exterior of the walls, and then on the west elevation, the stucco was to remain. There were some new windows being added. There was some new siding on the addition, and then on the east elevation there were some new windows, a new ramp, split face block and siding on the addition on that side. And then in the back of the building, a split face block addition with some siding. But again, a lot of the stucco on the upper floor was to remain. So Plan Commission wanted, in their approval, Plan Commission and Council wanted a little bit more consistency between the proposed addition and the bar building. And so after Paul determined that, you know, this wasn't feasible, it wasn't cost effective, he refocused the design, and instead of increasing the footprint of the building, instead of putting that addition on the back, just focused on the existing building area and proposed to reclad the building with an LP siding, cementitious board siding, like a lap siding, pretty much on all 4 sides of the building. The new windows, new doors around the building were still proposed. In fact, he went a little further and added some additional roll-up windows and second floor windows to the building. He proposed niche-ha siding on the base of the building, facing Greenfield Avenue and then wrapping around the east side of the building on the parking lot. The ramp was still being proposed, new doors and windows. So just in comparison, to sort of do the similar elevation view versus what's happened here. And basically all of those things, the windows, the lap siding, the niche-ha cementitious siding in the lower level, all that's been added. The part that hasn't been added is up above on the second floor, which remains to be stucco. But for consistency's sake, it has been repainted in a gray color to match the palette of the other siding materials on the building, and the windows give it a very transparent and open air look. So the red line here basically represents, this is roughly the edge of, on the front of the building facing Greenfield Avenue. The patio wraps around to the west side, but there's the Nichiha applied siding here as proposed and approved. New windows, siding, the LP cementitious siding up to the extent of the first floor area, and above that remains the existing building stucco. They've also added new lighting and new windows on the second floor. On the west side of the building, where the patio wraps around facing 81st Street, again, that cement siding, lap siding has been added on the first floor, as outlined in red here. Up above that is the existing building stucco material, which has been painted to match. And on the east side of the building, I'm sorry I don't have a full picture here, but again, similar siding up to the extent of the first floor, and then up above that, the gray stucco siding, accent lighting's been added. So, and after this, I think if some additional close-up pictures of this, but here's a before, looking from Greenfield Avenue, and after, some different, a nighttime view of that same Greenfield Avenue. On the west side, before and after. So I think the overall objective of consistency, while the siding hasn't been run up all the way, that would have been ideal, but it hasn't been run up all the way. The original Plan Commission plans did not include siding all the way up. We feel that it is much improved, and while not per the more recent January plan approval, we are recommending approval of the amended architectural plans, and Mr. Budiak and his wife are here to offer any other comments. Yeah.
Wayne?
Mr. Mayor, Steve, it sounds like you're willing to go along, but it's not quite what you would like. Is that
That's
fair
a
summation?
that's a good summary. I mean, ideally, this would have been, the approved plan with, siding all the way up was a good plan, and it was very aggressive. Paulie's, his plan was to invest quite a bit in this building, and while it would have been great, and I suppose it could still be done, but it's going to come at a cost over his budget, and we feel that the changes that he's made are consistent with, I guess, the original Plan Commission's intent of, approving a building. In that case, it was an addition plus some updates to the rest of the building, but in that original approval, I guess the stucco was still planned to be here. It's just in the subsequent revision, he went a little further and decided to run it all the way up. Again, it would have been, like you said, it would have been great to see it all the way up, but I think it's something that the way he's painted the building, added the lighting features, the windows, I think it does pull it all together. It is consistent in the initial intent and spirit of what Plan Commission had originally approved.
Since it's a financial issue for the applicant, and we're really getting, from your perspective, the department's perspective, second best, should we settle for second best?
I don't know that it's second best. I mean, the first and original was, slow here, maybe I should go through this. But, I mean, this was the original approval, and what we were expecting out of this was not to side the entire building. What we were intending was for some stronger roofline tweaks to the building, and again, maybe siding the back of the building. And instead of being so heavy with split face, we were looking for some siding in the back side of the building, and then again, not covering up the existing building with siding, but instead he was going to just leave that sort of the same color, that brownish color. Instead, he came back with a more harmonious plan. So I would say it's not, I guess I would look at it as a nice alternative option. I think what he's come forward with, in January was ideal, but I don't think we're I don't think we're losing character. I think it's still an asset for Greenfield Avenue. It's still something to look at and say that's much improved.
I'm certainly not interested in driving a thriving business out of West Allis, but given what you just said, I would move approval.
I'll second.
We have a second also. Any questions or discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you guys very much for working with us
Yeah.
and my error not knowing what to do, so I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We will move on to item 4A and 4B, 2011 massage.
Thank you, Mayor. All right.
Would it be appropriate to ask a question going into this subject?
I don't know, it depends on what the question is.
I will wait for your cue. We've just gone through the ringer as a city with a massage parlor. I can't imagine how many dollars of city budget were spent on investigating, how many man-hours of police work. Why are we turning right around and adding another massage parlor as opposed to, isn't the city council looking at whether or not we should be doing this as a city?
I would say they are, but I would also say that we've had negative press come out of bars, we've had negative press come out of a lot of things, but even with the negative press related to a proportion of whatever we're talking about, there's still a fair number that are honest business people that are just running, and I mean, I think you can't find someone guilty of a crime before they've committed it, and I'm sure that the council's aware of some of the problems that have been, you know, attached to businesses like these, but I don't think that that's enough to deny it. I think it's just enough to request accountability and that they're good residents and good businesses in the community.
And the special use does give the city more ability and control to slow down the process. Prior to 2017, you know, massage business was a permitted use, and they could apply for an occupancy permit, and if it met the zoning, they were in. Now there's a little bit more oversight. We send this out for technical staff review and comment. Our police department's involved, and several other departments. So it slows down the process, you know, for, you know, just opening your doors and starting business. So there is definitely some additional oversight than we had prior to 2017.
Police are very, very vigilant too.
I certainly agree with the mayor relative to the fact you can't paint everybody in the same business with the same brush. I mean, that's obvious. But I think that we really have to harken back to doing the due diligence and making sure that the police leadership understand what we're getting into. I'm sorry.
No, it's good.
And it's my understanding that the police hold interviews with the applicants and do a thorough background investigation.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. So
Tony?
2011 Massage is proposing to go into the space at 735 South 108th Street, or Highway 100. It used to be a mattress store, and now they want to turn it into a massage business. So they offer various different styles of massage. That they want to have up to 3 masseuses, and they're going to build out 4 different rooms. Their hours are Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 10 p.m., and Sunday, 10 to 9. Their zoning is C3. They're a special use pretty much across the board. Their public hearing will be February 19th.
And who will conduct that? This body or the Common Council?
The Common Council.
Common
will.
Council.
Common Council. Thank you.
So these are their interior plans, almost 1,700 total square feet, and they're going to build out a reception space, 4 massage rooms, and a bathroom. And they are required to have 5 parking spaces, but there are 16 available, so parking isn't an issue here. One condition that that we are putting on this special use is for the non-conforming pole sign to be removed. So the property owner has requested up to 5 years to remove the pole sign. I understand this is a bit unprecedented. It's usually Plan Commission gives 2 years and has given as much as 4 years to remove something. So, but we've spoken with the property owner. They say that the timeline is largely based on their improvement schedule. They've been putting a lot of money into the building, renovating the interior. They're going to be repaving the parking lot soon and fixing the facade of the building. So they have a lot scheduled out for the next few years. So they're asking for a bit more time to remove the pole sign. So it's up to the Plan Commission to decide how long they want to give them. So really our only condition of approval is to remove that the existing non-conforming pole sign.
We've worked with this property owner previously too on the Plaza 108 property, and so they're not opposed to, putting up monument signs. They're just asking for a little bit more time. They've actually removed a pole sign on their Plaza 108 property and installed a compliant monument sign there. So they understand. They just, based on their capital improvement schedule, as Tony mentioned, they need a little bit more time than usual.
You done?
All done.
Sorry. Any questions from the commission?
Does it really take that long to remove a sign?
Oh, we could probably have it down in about 5 minutes, but
Well,
I mean,
that's why I guess I'm
But
just surprised that.
there's some existing tenants within the building that are going to be utilizing they've got a commitment from the owner to utilize the sign.
Still utilizing.
Apparently, they've actually made some updates to it in the past year or so. They don't want to just take it all down.
Okay.
Even though you're right. I mean, it could come down pretty quick, right? I mean, you could borrow the mayor's car.
One snowplow.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Is there a reason that the sign is attached? Because the sign isn't even adjacent to where the business is going in. Is there a reason these are tied together that way?
Yeah, when we look at special uses, we look at the entire property,
Okay.
not just the one tenant space.
Okay, thank you. Is there any intention to do any exterior work other than maybe signage, or have you had that discussion with them?
Just signage.
I was going to ask about maybe some improved landscaping.
Normally, I know this property actually does a decent job of
Okay.
keeping up lots of flowers. And
Maybe that picture is
landscaping.
just
Yeah,
a bad time.
right.
I think they've actually won a beautification award. I mean, yeah, you wouldn't tell by this picture, but I mean, when things are in bloom, they've got quite an extravagant.
Okay, good. Because that's obviously a very visible corridor.
I think some of their longer-term tenants are actually out there doing the work, which is pretty cool. So,
Great.
Yeah.
We have a motion?
Move for approval?
I'll second.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
I'd like to request that the signage be dealt with within 2 years.
In 2 years?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to amend your motion? Or do you want to counter his offer?
I have no idea.
I think 5 years seems long to me. But 2 years seems a little short. But that's just me.
That 3.5.
I was gonna say, what if we meet in the middle?
3.5 years?
I mean, is
4, I think.
3, like,
4.
what's the average cost to remove it? I know they're talking about it's a cost issue.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know
It's
average?
probably not removing it, but it's building the monument sign to
Replace
replace
it,
Okay.
it.
right?
Yeah, the removal, wouldn't be much other than, their commitment to tenants.
Mhm.
But,
Which is a year-long commitment, I
Yeah.
believe.
Okay,
so,
4?
yeah, maybe 3 or 4.
is it Jen? Yeah.
Yes.
We have 2 leases that require the use of a sign. And somehow in our minds, we thought that this is a very minimal pylon sign. We thought we were okay for it. One is the Republican Party of Wisconsin, or Milwaukee. and the other is the granite shop, and we have recently been putting in money into repairing some of the light bulbs, the wiring, and so we're kind of tied into some leases. And one of those leases, I think, is at 5 years. That's one of the big reasons we asked for 5.
Is the Republican Party just a federal elections office for 2020, or is it going to be a longer term?
They might, no, they have, I think, an 18-month.
Okay.
They could renew, but, you know, it's not like we can ever find a way to put up a monument sign, and because that building is right up against the road, it's very low visibility. It's hard for people to find that
Yeah.
location.
So we have a motion with 5 and the second on 5 years, so.
I mean, yes, I would move to do it with the 5 if you've got leases and things that are tied to it. But I understand how would you want it removed sooner.
Can we
But-
put in a condition of if you have the vacancies that you would agree to take it down? You know,
If the tenant should vacate?
yeah, obviously we don't want that to happen, but if something,
Yeah,
yeah,
we can do that, but,
something like that.
Mm-hmm.
but still, you know, we will be coming back with a request for permits for the front of the building for the hair salons. You know, we're working on improving the look of the building.
Okay.
Little money put into that. We've redone the interior of the building. We would really like to do the parking lot, but it's gonna be the parking lot, or is it gonna be the, you know, taking down the signage, or I'm not sure. I would really like to do a parking lot, but
Yeah. Okay. You comfortable with that?
Yes.
You got that
Is
down?
that, so 5-year on the signage removal, but we'll remove sooner if they vacate?
If the tenants vacation allows it, something along those lines?
Yeah.
We'll have to,
Well, because I would think also if tenants vacate, they might be back here anyway with another special use permit or something like that.
yeah,
It's true.
possible, yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Aye.
1 opposed, 3 to 1, motion carries. All right. We will move on then to item 5A, 5B.
Thank you, Mayor. All right, this is gonna be deja vu. So, next massage business coming in called Asian Massage, proposing to locate at 1405 South Highway 100, 108th Street. They are just a few blocks south on the same side of the street. So they are renovating the former Wisconsin Vision store into a massage business, and they also have various styles of massage. They are proposing to build 3 partial height rooms and have 2 massage chairs there. And their hours will be Monday through Sunday, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Their zoning is also C3, and their public hearing will also be on February 19th. This is a look at their interior plans. They have 983 total square feet, and like I said before, they'll have 3 massage rooms, a reception space, 2 massage chairs, and a bathroom. They are required to have only 3 parking spaces, and they have 38 available, so they meet parking code. The condition of approval that we're putting on this property is for them to construct a 4-sided refuse enclosure just to screen the dumpsters appropriately from other uses. All of their neighbors also have 4-sided refuse enclosures, so we just want them to adhere to the screening and have a similar structure as their neighbors. That's it for that one.
Any questions?
Did you say the rooms were
Partial height,
partial height? Okay, so they,
so they don't go up to the ceiling. Mhm.
If there are no questions, do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
you have a second?
Second.
All right. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Hey,
3-1, motion carries. We'll move on to items 6A and 6B.
Thank you, Mayor. The applicant is here tonight. I think he was here, I saw him earlier, but this is a location at 2248 South 108th Street, former barber shop or salon with 4 apartment units upstairs, 4 one-bedroom apartments. So it's a mixed-use property on Highway 100 and just north of Lincoln, across from the Lincoln Plaza. This is a street view picture of the building, and the ground floor. There's a proposed grocery store and liquor store proposed for the site. The upper apartments would still remain. The zoning is commercial, C4 regional commercial, which does permit convenience stores and so on. It's just the fact that there's alcohol beverage sales, that's what triggers the special use review by zoning ordinance. So there will be a special use public hearing on February 19th. It was introduced before the License and Health Committee last night. They didn't take action. It was simply just introduced, passed along to Plan Commission for the site review and overview. And then ultimately the public hearing will be in February, mid-February. So the hours are 7 days a week from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. There are about 15 parking stalls available on the site, maybe 1 or 2 more depending on how you park here. But so it will meet the parking requirement for both the residential component of the building as well as the commercial component on the ground floor. Staff, there has been no site plan submitted with this. There is a site plan on file from 1978. So what we're asking for as a condition of the approval is that a new site plan and landscaping plan be submitted, more or less freshen up what's out there. There's been some changes over time, but in terms of what we're asking for, within the staff report, we alluded to just better parking lot details, removing of wheel stops along the south property line, installation, saw cutting and installation of a landscape area along the south, west and east sides of the parking lot area, identifying the location of the refuse container. Right now, the refuse is, I think, somewhere back here. We'll always, require a 4-sided enclosure and details of that. So, in addition to that, a floor plan being submitted, and all this should be designed by, ideally, a design professional, an architect to best delineate what's proposed. And we find that the most success comes from when something's been professionally designed and presented to the planning and building inspections for permitting. So the applicant's aware of that. He just was reluctant to go ahead and, I guess, make that investment until he had some, I think, more assurance from Planning Commission and perhaps the Common Council on the licensing transfer from 81st Street out to this location here. So, but if approved by the Planning Commission and Council, he would then proceed with an architectural plan to take the next step. So what we're asking for in our recommendation is that we are recommending approval of the use and subject to a site landscaping plan being submitted to the Department of Development, basically identifying the floor plan details, locations of various merchandise within the building, the parking lot details, the additional areas for landscaping, the plant materials being something that our city forester reviews, making sure that it's something durable enough to withstand wear and tear of the area. And yet aesthetic enough to provide some buffer to street frontages, neighborhood to the east, and properties to the south. The refuse area being indicated, 4-sided enclosure, and then there are some minor exterior changes that will be taking place within the building. Some of those will be translated to the outside. There's going to be a new door added on the south elevation, and a door on the east elevation is going to be closed, given some of the changes within the building. So we'll want exterior details of those changes for review. So we're asking for Plan Commission's acceptance to work with the applicant and move forward with this. Like I said, we don't come to agreement, it would come back to you. And aside from that, that's what I have. Yep.
Mr. Mayor, I'd move approval.
Anybody want a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Can I just ask what, is there something in the commercial portion now? What did you say?
It was
It was Marinello's.
Marinello's, like
Hair
a
salon.
salon.
It was
Yeah,
Marinello's.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I was trying to picture it. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 7, Lamar Advertising. Thank you.
For being there, okay.
So item 7 is a plan appeal for an existing freestanding sign, which is an existing non-conforming sign located at 1721 South 100th Street. The applicant is proposing to do some improvements to the sign that do not comply with our sign code. It includes taking it from, you can see there's currently four poles. It would be a monopole structure. It would be 80 feet in height, and it would be 672 square feet. The applicant is seeking this variance as a reaction to the sound wall that was built. As you can see, prior to the sound wall, the sign was very visible, and after the sound wall, it is much less visible. So our existing sign code versus what they are proposing do not match up in several ways. There's no masonry base, there's no landscaping proposed. It exceeds our maximum square footage by a large amount, by 622 square feet. It exceeds maximum height by 70 feet. And this sign would be entirely changeable copy, and our code only allows for 35% of the sign area to be changeable copy. And so, while we understand that the sound wall did change the effect of the sign from the highway, when we're talking about what types of things to consider in a variance, those include that they will not result in an undue concentration of signage. Here it's over 600 square feet of what's permitted. If it is of a unique and exceptional design or style, it's a pretty standard billboard. And finally, if there are any site difficulties that make it so that it is not visible from adjacent frontages. This, where that yellow circle is, would be a great place for a legal monument sign that would be visible from all frontages of the property. So with that, staff does recommend denial of this sign plan appeal.
Mr. Mayor, I'd move approval of the denial.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
And I do believe that Barbara from Lamar is here. So if there's any questions.
Are there any questions? Okay, so, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. All right, so the denial carries.
Okay.
All right, thanks. We'll go on to item 8.
Alright. Item 8 is a signage plan appeal for temporary signage, which is an unusual request. However, it was discussed with our building inspections department that it would be best to have them come through an approval process, just to have that all, to make sure that you guys reviewed it and are okay with it, and that it did go through an appropriate process. So this is for the 70th Street redevelopment project, the old Allis Chalmers office building. And again, so looking at the temporary sign code versus what they're proposing, is that our temporary sign section allows for one temporary sign that's either single or double faced for a maximum area of 32 square feet. If it's a freestanding sign at a maximum height of 5 feet, and typically issued for 180 days with the option to renew for 90-day periods up until a certain percentage of vacancies are filled on the site. The COBOL is requesting that they be allowed to have 3 signs. One of them would be, the freestanding sign would be on, this is further south on 70th Street. And then the other 2 would be, for now, would be wall signs, kind of in an L shape here at the corner of Washington and 70th Street. And all of the signs would look like this image right here. So these signs are 64 square feet each, and the freestanding sign would be 10 feet tall. And they are requesting that these be issued, that the permit be issued for a year. So, when staff was considering this, the fact that the signage is temporary and will at some point be removed, and given the large size of the overall development project, and the fact that these at some point will be, separate properties, and that they will be in contact with staff if they make any changes to where the location of these are as the construction and demolition project moves forward. Staff recommends approval of these temporary signs.
Even though these are temporary but they fall outside the guidelines, what kind of issues do you expect to have as a department with others coming forth and saying, give me a variance? This precedence thing always rears its ugly head. Just wondering how you'll deal with that, other than saying this is temporary.
So I think some things to consider are that, while consistency is important as a body, one decision does not force you to continue to make that decision. Everyone should be considered independently and reviewed on the considerations at hand. And I do think that, typically there are 4 lease signs that go up in the city that do not get permitted. The reason that they're coming before the Plan Commission is because they're pretty sizable signs. Typically, 4 lease signs are permitted to go up, and if there's not a permit with them, they're not forced to take them down for that reason.
Mr. Mayor, this is a major development in our city, as we know. I would recommend approval.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'd second.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 9 will be Apostle Presbyterian.
Thank you, Mayor. I missed the first and second. Did you guys get it?
Second?
Who was on the last item? Was it Wayne for motion?
Wayne moved, Dave seconded.
Thank you.
David seconded.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Apostles Presbyterian Church is proposing to update their sign on the corner of 76 and Orchard, and with us tonight we've got Pastor Kathy Manthe, Linda Hall, Poplacki Sign Company, and then Dean Pushney, members of the church. The removal of it's a very, very old sign. It's been there for decades, and it's time to, the church has decided that it wants to seek updating this with a new monument sign. The issue before us is that while the size of the sign is definitely, the area of the sign is 24 square feet, it's about half the size of what could otherwise be put there. 50 square feet would be a max. It's definitely lower than the 10-foot maximum height. It's at 5.5 feet. The issue that we have is that the electronic message center is roughly about over 50% of what, it's over 50% of the 35% that would be allowed. So The city sign ordinance allows 35% of the sign face to be electronic message centers. In this case, my math is correct, I'm looking at about 57 square feet of the sign face. So it's over in terms of its total size allowance for the electronic display. And then secondly, the city sign ordinance requires a masonry base. It doesn't specify specifically the type of masonry. It could be brick, it could be block, it could be a veneer, it could be a landscape block surround. But it does require, there's a masonry component to the sign base. It needs to be at least 2 feet high. So the appeal request is to basically install, a new sign to replace the other one. Major technology upgrades, a new color, but with a metal base and with a sign display in excess of the 35%. So from planning's perspective, just another look of what's there today versus what's planned. And you can see that in their defense in proposing this, they're simply trying to replicate as close as possible what they have today in the new sign, just with some technology upgrades. But nevertheless, it does require a signage permit, and in the event of a signage permit, there is sign review, and when a business or an organization makes an investment in a sign or an alteration, whether it be a building or a structure or a sign, that's the time where we would like conformance with our ordinance. So what we're asking is perhaps for some consideration from the Plan Commission to take a look at, and we had talked a little bit about this earlier today with church members here tonight, but about reducing the size of the electronic message center display, adding a cap feature, or perhaps even increasing the height of the cabinet slightly to, again, create a little bit more sign area, which would then bring that electronic message display possibly into conformance with our sign code. And then to utilize a masonry veneer base, or perhaps a landscape block base around the base of the sign. One example, just relatively close by on 76 in Lapham, is at the First United Church. They, I guess, worked with us on a message display center. These are not the same dimensions or anything, but it's a just relatively close by example. They offered, I guess, on this sign, they added a cap feature, which happened to be sort of a peak roof blind feature. They increased the size of the cabinet above the electronic display, and thereby, when we measure the sign area, we take the general rectangle around around this, and that's what the sign area is. And then you measure the area of the display, and as long as that display is 35% or less than the overall sign area, it's compliant. And they happened to reuse an existing sign, previous sign base, so they kind of lucked out in that respect. They already had a masonry base, but we worked with other businesses in town. Each one has different constraints, but I think in its application over the years that we've had the sign ordinance, I think we've always sort of come to some workable solution, and we hope to do the same here with Apostles. I think we're running into a little bit of a, obviously there's budget issues, and they're here tonight to explain, their point of view and what they like to achieve. But for the reasons stated earlier with nonconformance with the sign ordinance, we're recommending denial of the proposal as is.
And if I could just make one note on the percentage. So the total square footage is 36.56, so 36 and a half, and then our EMC is 13, about 13 and a half. The overall percentage of the sign face in relation to the sign is 37%. So we are still over that 35%, but we're at 37 of the entire sign face.
Okay. I may be way off, but I mean, I guess in terms.
That
yeah.
we calculated today, so that
Okay.
we didn't have this morning.
All right. I guess I'm just looking at the, the three, if we were to take the overall area of the sign face, I mean, I guess, 3 inches plus 2.7 inches plus 10 inches. I guess that's what I was, this portion of the sign is what I was factoring as the overall sign face. The cabinet, this portion down here, I guess I wasn't calling that signage, I was calling that like just base. So I guess if we take this area here, I was coming up with like 24 square feet, of which there's about, I think, 13, I think we agree on the display size. So I was coming up with like 57, this is 57% of this area.
Okay.
So I think maybe where we're off is maybe down here.
The base.
Yeah.
Okay, so typically, and that must be a miscommunication
Okay.
between, with our permitting department.
Okay.
I've been advised that it's the sign square footage, and then it's the percentage in relation.
Okay.
So you're not considering the pole cover as part of that
Right.
square footage?
Yeah, I mean, so I guess the way our sign ordinance works is, I guess we're always looking at like base, middle, top in terms of the form of a sign. So the first 2 feet is usually the masonry part. And then after that, you get into the, the sign display or cabinet. And then usually there's perhaps a cap feature integrated with that, so as the top. So we're open to working with you guys on trying to find a solution. And if Plan Commission so desires to hold this item and maybe give us another chance at compliance or getting a little closer, that'd be the idea. Unless,
I'd just be curious because you had mentioned that you talked about these items today. What was the reaction, or is there any?
yeah.
Well, the main concern with some of based on the feedback that Steve had given us prior to today, the main concern with the other options that we investigated is all of them, especially the masonry base, starts to change the budget, which potentially makes this project no longer feasible. So as you can imagine, the church wants to upgrade not only the aesthetic of the sign, but also how much they can connect with the community. So right now, I'm sure you're all very aware, manual reader boards, you can only get so much content up per day, and they're a lot more labor intensive to update. Obviously with this, in any given day, they can maximize the amount of content that they're sharing, and also the amount of awareness that they're spreading on what events they have going on that week. The other concern is right now we're trying to, for budget reasons, to reuse the existing base. So if we leave the sign as is, but then add a taller top cabinet and also add masonry, as we stand right now, although square footage we've reduced, weight-wise we've greatly increased because the digital displays are quite heavy. So we're right on the edge right now of being able to reuse that existing footing, which saves a lot of money. We don't have to excavate and pour a new foundation. If we switch over to some of the recommendations, unfortunately, we're likely going to have to excavate and pour a new foundation, and the budget becomes a little more restrictive then.
Wayne?
If I could just add something on behalf of Apostle. I'm here tonight because I'm on the budget committee. I'm here with Kathy Manthe, our pastor, and Linda Hoon from Session, and it's obviously very important to us because I'm not sitting in my living room watching my 85-inch TV right now. And I'm blind in my right eye, I need a big TV. But anyway, as was discussed, we're trying to upgrade our appearance at the church. You've driven by the old sign, we're a block south of here. If you go south on 76th Street, you see it. Over the years, we've received so many positive messages on that sign. We've had people call us from Oshkosh saying, hey, I was driving down 76th Street, tell me about this. But lately, the sign is just not functional, and we want to upgrade. But our big concern is this. Our friends at Pavlaki, which have been wonderful, and it's a West Allis business, by the way, we're sticking in the city, they've told us it's going to cost $4,000 to do this. And I understand the purpose behind the planning committee. I was a city employee for many years. I love the planning commission here. But you tell Walgreens, oh, we're going to upgrade you $4,000. Oh, is that all? Here you go. You tell Home Depot $4,000. Okay, here you go. You tell Apostle Church it's $4,000. That's 5 or 6% of our annual contributions. It's not feasible for us, honestly. And I just met with Kathy and Linda today, and I gave them the good news here that I just got back on the Budget and Finance Committee. In the last 4 years, our contributions have been down 31%. Doesn't mean we're dying. It means that, well, some people are going, unfortunately. Older folks are leaving, like your churches. There's a lot of challenges. We've been in a community here for longer than there's been in West Allis. Since 1900 or so, our church has been in the community. And we've been great community partners, especially since Pastor Kathy's come on board here. And I think she's worked with City Hall on a number of initiatives. We currently have been assisting the school district and West Allis Hospital with shared journeys. They were looking for a place to house their newborn high school girls who become early mothers. We help them get through school. We just talked at the last session meeting about bringing in the school district and having them use our whole kitchen area for a class where 25 high school kids, if they go to this class, they save a year on their education at WCTC or MATC. We've been great community partners, and so has the city. I mean, you allow us to use a parking lot on Sunday, and we greatly, greatly appreciate it, and respectfully, we're asking for a variance.
Thank you. Wayne, did you have a question?
Yes. Pastor Kathy and Chief Dean are longtime friends, and I certainly can read the write-up and hear the presentation that Dean just made. And yet we have the issue of the plan commission, the plan department, wanting to continue to work with the applicant. And I'm wondering if we do in fact table this, if we can get the parties together and see if we can nudge this a little closer to a win-win.
Is there a middle?
We're definitely open to continuing to evolve this.
There's got to be a middle.
See, I mean, I don't design signs, but I would think it would be doable.
Well, Mr. Mayor, with that response, I would move that we table and have the parties get together and figure out this solution.
Is there a second to
I
that?
would second that.
There's a second, okay. Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. All right.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
See you in February. We'll move to item 10. City right away, 113th.
Anyone here representing?
All right, Dean, I gotta take off and meet my son. Good seeing you. Mayor, how you doing?
Good to see you, Dean.
Take care. Take care. Is anyone here representing 113th Street?
113th Street?
No?
No?
All right.
Move to deny.
Yeah, well,
They're here for the last one, should we?
Yeah,
Yeah.
what item are you guys here for?
Nothing.
no, just, yeah, okay.
Fun?
Well, thanks
All
for
right.
hanging out with us. We're
Okay,
here we go.
113th Street.
Try to advance here. Here we go. So, at last, earlier this year, we received a request from the property owner of 11218 West Mitchell Street, which is an industrial property, Central Transport Company, that would like to request vacation and discontinuance of a portion of unimproved right-of-way on 113th Street between Lapham and Mitchell. So by unimproved, I mean there was never any pavement there. It's dirt, grass, it looks like a field, and probably with some trees. So they're requesting a discontinuance of that, and what that means is that, there's going to be a public hearing process. It was introduced to Common Council last night, before Plan Commission this evening, and the public hearing, when it would be scheduled before March 3rd, 2020, and basically this area here is a 60-foot wide by 580-foot stretch of city-owned right-of-way, or public right-of-way, just shy of an acre of land. And if vacated by the Common Council, half of it, 30 feet, would go to this property owner here, and the other half would go to the condominium property owners to the west. There's actually two ownerships here. And then they could, use the land however they saw fit. But the rationale for the applicant, why they want the additional land would be for future expansion of their facility here. On a bigger picture look of the same area we were just looking at, just on a bigger scale. This is Highway 100, north-south corridor, and this is Greenfield Avenue, the Union Pacific Railway and the city's crosstown connector bike trail are here. But on a larger note, the city is currently always sought additional means of cross-access, both north-south cross-access, parallel to Highway 100 on both sides of Highway 100. So over here, we're always looking for opportunities between properties to get north and south. This happens to be one unimproved portion of right-of-way, which, given potential future development in this area, may become a valuable asset to have. So I think it might be a little short-sighted to just discontinue this at this point in time until we continue to evolve the Highway 100, which is going to be kind of the next frontier in terms of development. We've currently hired a land use study and marketing study of the corridor, and we'll have that presentation at a future soon-to-be Plan Commission meeting, and Gensler will come in and give their presentation and recommendations, one of which happens to be better connections parallel and along the corridor, not only between properties, but the stretches along that area. So for those reasons, staff is recommending denial at tonight's meeting, and we have, I guess, a similar recommendation before the council for their consideration.
Mr. Mayor, I'd move approval for the denial.
Second.
There's a motion, there's a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Item 11 is the vacation and discontinuance of 59th Street.
Thank you, Mayor. So another vacation here. This is for the South 59th Street in between National Avenue and Greenfield Avenue, but not quite as far as Greenfield Avenue. It goes just as far as this alleyway right here. So this is outside of, in between Kegel's Inn and Public Table. So the vacation means that the city would give up this way for those two restaurants to take ownership of the street. And as you may know, over the summer they put out some tables and a stage, and they've been pretty successful thus far. And now they're working on making an ice skating rink. So I actually have a picture from earlier today of them working on it. They're on a time crunch right now because they have an event tomorrow. So they're just sprinkling it with water all day long. And all night long. He says he's out there till 2 in the morning. So the schedule for consideration, it was introduced to Common Council yesterday by Alderman Vitale and requires approval today, and then their public hearing is on March 3rd. Staff recommends approval of this vacation.
I would move to approve.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
They're not obviously here to discuss, but do they have more permanent plans then? Or is that going to come back before us if they're going to do something?
That's going to be the next step. We're going to be working with them on easements and
Okay.
Fire hydrants right
and
there, and
Yeah.
maybe future programming, their ideas.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
okay, if there's no other discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Item 12, survey summary.
Whoops, you know what, I didn't put it in there.
That's okay, I
Apologize,
know where they
Katie.
are.
Okay.
One moment, please. So we just wanted to give you guys an update on, after each plan commission meeting in 2019, we sent out basically a customer satisfaction type of a survey, for lack of a better term, to anyone that was on the agenda. And there were 6 yes or no questions with an option to leave any additional comments, a rating of the process, the whole plan commission process, so from application through approval, of poor to excellent, and then additional requests for any more feedback that they had. So our response rate was 21%. There were 14 out of 65 respondents, which is not, terribly great, but it's
Common.
Yeah, I think it's pretty common. Yeah, a lot of people ignore survey requests. So, interestingly, for all of our yes or no questions, 100% of the respondents said yes to all 6 of those questions, and on average left there were about 3 comments per question left. So this is just a sample of some of those things. Were you treated with courtesy and respect? Yes, excellent staff, very courteous and helpful. I think there were lots of call-outs to Steve's awesomeness in there. So yes, did you receive clear and accurate information? Was staff helpful in answering your questions? Did you feel welcome when you came into the office? Were you in contact with staff prior to submission of the application? And if you answered yes to 5, was that helpful to you? So pretty positive feedback overall. The overall rating of the process from excellent, poor, fair, good to excellent. 12 of the respondents said excellent and 2 said good. And then there were just some additional comments that people had left. Most of them were positive. I think the only one that is maybe somewhat constructive is, some submittals seem limited in their submittal. But otherwise, I think, this was so this feels like bragging and it's kind of awkward, but it's,
Run with it.
but it's nice. So where did that one go? You rate out A+ against any of them. So anyway, overall it was really good feedback. We have been talking though about, if moving forward, if there's better questions that we could be asking or different questions that we should be asking to get any more, feedback that can help us make changes that are necessary if they, are necessary. So if you have any thoughts or comments about the types of questions that you'd like to see us asking folks who come through this process, please let us know, and we'll try to incorporate them for the 2020 version of this as we go forward.
Great.
Number 4, the front office was very welcoming. What about the back office?
Well, mostly when people come into the development office, they usually see Gail and Barb first.
Yeah.
So, but hopefully also nice.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Most days.
That's question 7 for next year, or for this year. Good. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I'm assuming we don't vote on that, so.
No, just an item.
Yeah, so then can we have a motion to adjourn? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed and want to stay here longer? All in favor? We did, okay. We're adjourned, thank you.
Thank you.